what I've done is I have just opened up and started to speak freely about what's going on in the industry.
It's not like you can call the police, call a friend, you may be out in the middle of an ocean.
So I climb up the sea stairs, I get 1 foot on the back deck, and I look around and I said, this is what I want to do.
Right, if you're trying to make a gain, there has to be a risk of loss.
And this is the same, I think, for any CEO or any leader. We become captains because we like to drive boats, we like to navigate, and we like weather. Nobody tells us that that's only 10% of our job.
Captain Kelly Gordon. I would like to welcome everybody to another episode of the House of Bricks podcast. As you know, if you've been following us, we've featured some amazing guests, top CEOs, keynote speakers, NBA champions, Super Bowl champions, doctors changing the landscape of healthcare. And today I have a very special guest. We met down at the Aspire conference in Miami at a VIP dinner with David Meltzer and another amazing attendees. And I had the honor of sharing a table with Captain Kelly Gordon. And we started to talk and shared her story. And she's recently got into keynote speaking, which we'll talk about. But one thing that we do emphasize at the House of Bricks is that everybody has a story that they can tell in only the way that they can tell it that will inspire other people. And so, Kelly, I'd like to welcome you to the House of Bricks podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am so excited to be here with you. And having met you just a few weeks back at the Aspire event, that was just super cool. You know, walking up to you and being like, hey, my name's Kelly and I want to tell you my story. And you just, the way that you immediately shifted around in your chair, focused on me, looked at me, you know, really directed your attention to me. And I was like, you know, I was a little bit starstruck because here I am at this event, you know, with all of these people, keynote speaking and stuff is uncharted territory for me, no pun intended. But the way that you just really focused on me and our conversation was really cool. So, like, just thank you for being so welcoming and such a cool human.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Tell my wife I'm a good listener. So it's a skill I have developed over 21 years of hearing but not listening. So she always tells me you're hearing me but not listening. But I am getting better. So now I have a witness that says I am a better listener, getting better. So we got into a lot of details of your story, and it's a great conversation. For me as well, my wife's stepfather, he had a mega yacht, so I'm familiar with that world and all that goes on. And so before we get into where you are currently, tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Well, you know, I think I started off by telling you what I was doing in the mental health space with the yachting industry and how passionate I am about that. But you know, I also shared that I grew up in the middle of America. So small town USA, north central Indiana, on a farm, and dropped out of high school at the age of 15 and went on to get my master's degree in chemistry, which, yes, totally relates to running motor yachts. And, you know, here I am, 15 years later, one of the few female Superyacht captains, doing well, growing my own brand, growing my side hustle. But you know that I've just haphazardly shared my story along the way, and so many people like yourself, you know, turned to me and said, "Wait a minute, you grew up on a farm, you didn't even know what the yachting industry was, you quit high school when you were 15, and you have a master's, and now you're a Superyacht captain." And I don't think anything of it. But when I tell it to people, they're like, you know, that's pretty cool. And so fast forward 15 years now, and not only being a captain, but also having a brand and just sharing my story to inspire people, you know, hey, if I can do it, you can do it too. And it can be anything.
Yeah, and you can. And I don't know if I shared this with you, and this isn't a little Adam House commercial, but I'll do it anyway. So I did something similar. I dropped out of college when I was a freshman, didn't have any money, moved down to South Florida, started my first business. Again, no formal training in marketing, ended up exiting that company, started another one, mobile technology, no background in tech or mobile, exited that company. So it's really interesting to see people that don't go the normal path that society tells you, the world tells you, and yet somehow come out on top. And I'm trying to reverse engineer that, and I'll be able to retire on a nice island and maybe hire you as my super yacht captain. But it's something I'm really interested in, because you look at successful people, they don't take the straight and narrow road. It's just a lot of curves, but they do have a destination that they're trying to get to. And just even paralleling it to what you do, right, is how, where do you want to get to, how are you going to get there, and what's the cost in order, to do it. And there are sacrifices that you have to make along the way, a lot of collateral damage to yourself, right, trying to achieve difficult things, collateral damage to the people around you as you have all these fears and anxieties, and you're taking it out on the people closest to you because you feel safe with them. And so it's really something interesting. And the more entrepreneurs I interact with, I'm trying to look for commonalities and patterns of what they are doing. But it really just seems to be that they're comfortable with failure. And the more comfortable you can get being uncomfortable, the more successful you will be in the end. And so, first of all, I just want to continue to encourage you in what you're doing. I see that the best is yet to come for you, even though you've accomplished a lot. And so, and I love how people call the Midwest the Midwest. So I'm from Michigan, and you look at a map of the United States, we are not in the middle or in the West. So that's a conversation for another day. But so you go that path. I mean, through dropping out of dropping out of high school, then ending up getting your master's. What led you to the yachting industry?
It was complete accident. And that's something else. When you say you want to see what is it that entrepreneurs are comfortable with. One, I want to go back to that for a second, because I'm super excited. I am preparing this week for the opening keynote. I'm going to be the opening act at the Women Leading Travel and Hospitality Summit in Charlotte. So I'm super excited about that. And one of my big lines in my speech is that my biggest failure led me and put me on the path to my biggest success. So my biggest failure led me to my biggest success. So if we digress a minute, so I had, since the time I was little bitty, always wanted to be a veterinarian. Well, dropped out of high school, that makes that kind of difficult. So then I realized, well, crap, I need to go back to college if I really want to be a veterinarian. So I did, got my bachelor's in chemistry, got into veterinary school the first time I applied, which is hard to do. But then a lot was going on in my, at the time, 22-year-old mind. I now was going to have to move away from home. I was going to have to be away from my family, my brother and sister, the farm. We were farmers growing up. There really was no way to pay for veterinary school. So I had taken out max loans to pay for what essentially just covered my tuition, but then didn't have enough to live on. So all of that in my 22-year-old mind, I quit. So I went 6 weeks into veterinary school. I was struggling just with a lot of feelings of where do I belong? I don't fit in. I didn't feel intelligent enough, which is so stupid because I had just gotten into veterinary school the first time I applied. How can I not be? But that's all the things that was going on in my mind. So again, my biggest failure, which was dropping out of veterinary school, that was my dream. That's what I wanted to be. Well, now I dropped out. So now in my mind, I'm this complete failure. And so I decide what makes total and complete sense in my 22-year-old mind is to kind of run away from it all and latch on to the next available man that comes along, move to North Carolina. And that's where I said, well, I've got my bachelor's. That's not going to do me much. So I said, well, I'll get my master's in chemistry. I did. And so then my last semester, writing my thesis, I got a job as an adjunct professor at a local college. Graduated, became full-time professor at this college, and it was a student. And so this is a couple things here that are really really standing out in my mind is my biggest failure leads to my biggest success, but one simple human led me to that. And she was a non traditional student. It was my first semester teaching. She sat off in the right hand corner. Her name was Joanne. And she was a huge part of this tiny little town, which at the time I had, remember, no idea about the yachting industry, hadn't even seen the ocean until I moved out there. I was 23 years old. So I didn't know the town that I was teaching in was a very integral port town for the yachting industry on the eastern seaboard. It's where all the yachts stopped when they were transiting north and south. And she says to me, "Look, I'm a huge part of the town. I see that you're new here. I want to show you around." I kept telling her no, 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 no. Finally, I said, "Look, when I've got grades turned in and there's no conflict of interest," I said, "I'll go out and I'll explore the town with you." She just wanted to show me around. She was a huge part of the town. And the first place that we went to was to a party on a yacht. And I'm walking down this dock and I'm looking up at it and I'm going, "Is that where we're going?" She says, "Yeah." And I said, Is that a yacht?" And she says, "Yeah." So I climb up the sea stairs. I get one foot on the back deck and I look around and I said, "This is what I want to do." And here we are 15 years later. I knew nothing. I didn't know bow from stern. I didn't know port from starboard. I knew nothing. But what I did know was there was some feeling that came over me the minute that I stepped on that boat and I said, "This is what I want to do." So my biggest failure via one simple human put me on the path to my biggest ever success, to where I am now.
Well, there's a lot to dig into there, but I want to quote you on that. Your biggest failure led to your biggest success. And I tell people all the time, in being an entrepreneur for 27 years, I've spent 90% of my life failing, right? But it's led to that 10% of exponential success. And uh, faith and fear cannot coexist, but you cannot have opportunity without fear either, right? If you're trying to make a gain, there has to be a risk of loss. And so when people are in that place of, "I'm going to lose everything," they are on the verge of their biggest opportunity. And it's great to hear that you were able to overcome that. And the second point that you made, which a lot of people miss out on, is there was a person in your path that was able to do that. And I've had people throughout my professional career, even in high school, interning for Dan Gilbert, owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers and Rocket Mortgage. He's rebuilt the entire city of Detroit, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our generation. But I was in his company when there were maybe 80 or 90 team members. So just being an intern in that environment, I didn't even know what I was absorbing at the time, but it helped propel my entrepreneurial career. Being around the Huizenga family, you're in the yachting
Mm-hmm.
industry. When I lived in South Florida, I got connected with Wayne Huizenga Jr., great person to be connected with in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And so he mentored me, and now even working with David Meltzer, right? What I'm trying to do and taking my influence to a higher level. Him and I share a common thread of believing in the universal principle that you receive 10 times what you give, but the universe cannot be fooled by a lack of authenticity. So my intent is always to give first. And of course, we all want to make money and gains, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my intent is to serve other people. And so I think you're doing, well, I know that you're doing that now. You've climbed your first mountain and getting ready for your second one, and you're going to carry a lot of people with you in that process. So, but I do fully understand the awe that you experienced when stepping on to your first yacht. Like what you see on TV or in a photo, like you can't experience it unless you're on it. Like you're on a 25, $50 million, $75 million yacht. It's just the whole experience you really can't describe or see on TV. You have to have to go through or actually be present. In fact, my stepfather's yacht, Aurora, they had the helicopter as well. So
Mhm.
I was 24, 25 years old and had just met my wife. It was her stepdad. And she's like, yeah, we're going to go out on my stepdad's boat. And we were in New York City. So we took his G6 down to Fort Lauderdale. There's a
Oh, wow.
helicopter waiting right there, hopped on the helicopter and flew out to the yacht. I'm like, where am I right now?
Where am I? Where are we going?
Where are we
So
going?
you know the feeling.
I
You
do
know the
know that
feeling.
feeling, and I want to experience it on my own yacht someday if I can get there through serving others. But I can tell you that boat looks extremely small from the air, and it's moving when you're on a helicopter. So
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
that first experience was something else. So you get into this profession. What have been some of the challenges that you face? Just not only not having, I guess, the normal path there, but also being a female.
I mean, yes, definitely. And it one that I mean, the yachting industry in itself is different. It's fun. It's amazing. It's changed my life. I get out of bed every single day loving my job, but it's also difficult in the sense that you think about we're together all the time. You know, the crew are together. We work together. We eat together. We live together. We play together. We do everything together. So that there's that in itself that adds just a whole another element to it when you start to think about it. 15 years ago, I would look around and you wouldn't see women at the helm. There were some, but you just knew of them. You didn't. There were so few of us that we knew who each other was, but you never saw one another. So very few 15 years ago. Still very few now. It's changing. It's growing. Um, has it been has it been difficult trying to move my way up the ladder as a woman? Yes, but no. And this is where mindset comes in to play because have I met men along the way that have blatantly said you have no business in the industry. You're a woman, you have no business here. I have. But I chose not to pay any attention to them. In a way, I have moved through the industry with my eyes wide open, but with my blinders on. My blinders on in the sense that if you're going to be a naysayer, if you're not going to help me get to where I want to go, then I'm not going to pay any attention to you. In fact, if I do give you any of my attention, it's going to take your doubt or you telling me that I can't, and I'm just going to let that add fuel to my fire. And then I'm going to sit there and I'm going to go, oh, yeah, you don't think I can? Well, watch this. So mindset has been huge in everything that I've done from being little bitty to now. And I like to call it flipping the script or making a positive out of a negative. So if I'm going to run into, some sort of interference or negativity in the industry for me getting to where I want to go, I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to take that negative and I'm going to turn it into a positive. I'm going to let it add fuel to my fire. But then go to the people, how many people that have along the way wanted to help me, and men, largely men, because the industry is largely men. I came into the industry knowing that, look, you can come in either slinging elbows, trying to make room for yourself, or you can come in respecting the men that are here, asking them for their help, acknowledging that they have years and years and a wealth of knowledge. You can reach out to them and utilize that, ask for their support, or you can sling elbows. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I chose to respect them and to go to them for the knowledge that they had. And so for me, my experience getting to where I am now, the men in this industry have been my greatest cheerleaders. They have been my greatest supporters. Yeah, I've had them tell me, one told me, he's like, you shouldn't be doing this as a woman. And that was just a cultural difference. And what's funny is he's also a captain, but when I'm also in his country navigating, I don't hesitate to reach out to him and say, hey, I'm going to XYZ. What can you tell me about this or that? He'll tell me, even though he thinks I shouldn't be a captain,
Right.
he still helps. Or, one fellow one day, uh, just automatically assumed that I was the stew, and I said no. So then he assumed that I was the chef. I said no, and he says, well, there's no other positions left for you to be. And I said, well, keep going through all of them. So finally he gets, to engineer. I say no, and he gets to captain. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the captain. And he's like, well, that's just not possible. Well, he was a grouchy old man. No matter what I could have said would have made him happy. So I was just like, let me ignore that. So it's getting to hear, yes, it's been tough as a woman, but no, it hasn't, because it's the mindset that I chose to adopt along the way. And if there was an obstacle or a challenge, I flipped the script and I said, well, how can I use this as fuel to get to where I want to go? So mindset's huge. The conversation, self-talk that you have is huge. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, yesterday I remember looking at the clock at 7:13 p.m. when I'm rehearsing my keynote speech. I'm like, oh God, why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? Am I going to be, and then I'm like, okay, enough of that. You'll do fine. You'll knock it out of the park. This is going to be really good. But, there's also a lot of self-talk. The conversations that you have with yourself are huge.
Yeah, and there's so much talk about mindset today, right? And you get on social media and now everyone's a therapist. They read one thing and they're diagnosing people with all these different things. But mindset, it really is simple. I can break it down into two choices. You can either have faith or you can have fear, and they cannot coexist. So the degree of resistance that you're facing is the degree of opportunity. And if you believe where you believe you're called to where you want to go, you're going to get there. But again, it does require people around you to help you get there. And that's why I talk about business experience is the most overrated thing for success in business. It's relationship capital. So surrounding yourself with really three different types of relationships. So I have a mentor, like a David Meltzer or whoever at the time in whatever company I'm doing. And then I have peers that I'm working alongside of. We're both trying to accomplish everything. And this is where a lot of people stop in the relationships that they invest in. And the third one, which is the most important, is mentoring other people. And even if you work at a gas station, you can find someone that doesn't have a job and teach them how to get a job at a gas station. So you don't have to be a VIP or CEO or billionaire to mentor other people. There's always someone that you can invest in. And then that universal principle of giving, when you're giving to others, you will be able to receive 10 times more. And it just, those three types of relationships, when you can get that synergy going, it just creates exponential results. And so there's a lot of glitz and glamour about the yachting industry. But with all of that, just like in Hollywood or the music industry or professional athletes, there's always a dark side. And if you're open to it, I'd love to hear you talk about some of that, because the only way darkness gets exposed is through light. And
No, and I'm just from what little you've known about me, that I'm huge about, I don't want to say exposing it, but being real. And one of the things is I'm very an authentic, genuine, this is what you see is what you're going to get kind of person, and just really, really important to me is my authenticity. And in that, what I've done is I have just opened up and started to speak freely about what's going on in the industry. And again, love my job. I jump out of bed every day ready to go to work. But there is some dark side to it. And so let me go back to that. We live together, work together, play together. We're together all the time. Different nationalities, different ethnicities, different backgrounds. So, you take this boat, for example. It's a 108-foot fast boat. And on it, there's me. I'm a woman captain, so that right there is different. My engineer is older than me, Hispanic, traditional Hispanic. So there's a little bit of that. And I'm dating him, so add that into the mix.
This is
Then
a
our
soap
second,
opera.
yeah, then our second engineer is Bahamian, so we've got a different culture there. We've got a day worker with us that's Venezuelan. My deckhand is from Michigan, so good old Midwestern boy. And then my chief officer is Venezuelan as well. So we're a big mix, right? We're all mixed up. We're all different ages. The youngest is 24. The oldest is 50. Um, so you put all that together every day, all day, and and we're a very tight, close knit crew, but but and I run a pretty tight ship, no pun intended, or pun intended there, if you will.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's in this industry, there's four things that I've been speaking very openly about. One is drug and alcohol abuse by crew. Um, Crew getting into this trap somehow of we work hard, play hard, or maybe mistaking that, look, this is the owner's playtime. This is the owner's time to come and let his hair down and enjoy and relax and have fun. It's, you don't need to be consuming the same $1,500 bottle of wine. And you don't, so there's a huge we work hard, play hard kind of attitude then that turns into just flat out drug and alcohol abuse.
Right.
Well, nothing ever happens good with that. Then we've got a huge problem with sexual harassment in this industry. And I'll say largely by higher positions. There is a huge abuse of power from captains. I am a captain, I can say it. And they abuse their power grossly. Then there's bullying. Bullying is just rampant in this industry, and then discrimination is the fourth. But one thing I was at the U.S. Embassy in London a couple months ago speaking about the mental health in the seafaring industry, and it was largely from the commercial industry. I was the only yachty there, and they're talking about improvements that they want to make, and I'm sitting over here going, I just wish we had captains that didn't snort cocaine and drive the boat drunk. Adam, that's the reality of it. I mean, I was just called a few weeks ago by a stew who says, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, I need your help. My captain's snorting so much cocaine that his nose is bleeding all over the white carpet in the boat. Adam, you're the captain, you're the leader, you're who everybody looks up to. Or I went for a handover on my last boat. I flew to the Bahamas to take over a new command a few years ago. I showed up 3 days in a row at 9 o'clock in the morning to start my handover, and the outgoing captain was shit faced drunk straight away at 9 a.m. And I'm like, how can this be? So there's a huge drug and alcohol abuse problem by owners, yes, but I want to speak more specifically about crew, by crew, and it shouldn't be. And then the sexual abuse. Well, I'll just say I cut a training session short to come to this podcast. I was literally in a training session, and I signed out at 9:24 about sexual abuse in the seafaring industry, and that it's just it's crazy. And my Venezuelan day worker that's here, she comes from the commercial industry, and she said, I left the commercial industry because of what goes on in that too. And I'm like, well, we still have the problems with it here as well. So it's yeah, there's dark side to this industry, and it's something that I'm so tired of seeing. And I'm not afraid to speak up, and I kind of figured, while you're here on this planet sucking up all the oxygen, you need to do something to give back. And I'm not afraid to speak up and speak out. And I have a unique position as one of the few women in the industry. I am a captain, I run a tight ship. So I'm going to speak up. I'm going to speak out, and I'm going to try. And I tell myself, even if I only change the life of one person, I've done my job. But I'm trying to change the landscape of the whole industry, and I'm not stopping until I put a big dent in it.
It starts with one person, and like I told you in Miami, I do believe you have. I know you're going to do it. You are going to make a big change in the world. So A lot of emotions run through my mind just as you're talking. First of all, it's some compassion for the captains out there, right? You're isolated. You're in a high authority job, right? And they're alone, right? They don't know what to do or how to act, or and it's really their own insecurities that cause that. So being in a level of being a CEO since I was 19, like you learn kind of what is the root cause of some of those behaviors, and being around high performing people all my life, it's very interesting how that is some of the outward expression of what's really going on the inside. And then secondly, obviously compassion for the other people in the industry that are the brunt of that type of behavior, and specifically being on a boat. It's not like you can get in your car and drive home. It's not like you can call the police, call a friend. You may be out in the middle of an ocean.
Mhm.
And
We don't
so
clock out at 5 p.m.
no, you're just on, your life is theirs. And when
Mhm.
they call, you answer. And it's a very difficult profession. And this is another thing that I think is really good in what you're doing is this process of authenticity. You're going to be able to connect other people in uh, in a similar situation and help carry them out of that situation. And it's something we talk about at the House of Bricks, which is the power of community. Since the beginning of
Mhm.
time, people have always needed community. It's how our world is built. It's how human beings are designed. So anything that the House of Bricks can do to help empower you, this is right in our wheelhouse. Just connecting people on their journey. We're happy to do that to help inspire you and encourage you. And then also for all the people that are listening to this in your network, there are communities out there, whether it's House of Bricks, it's not, doesn't matter to me, or your community. If you're doing that, it's just about get around people, share your story, and that will help you overcome whatever adversities that you are facing. So,
Well, you mentioned compassion and authenticity. And compassion is huge because when junior crew come to me and they're like, my captain's being blah, 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 I tell them, wait a second here. Yes, what he or she is doing is wrong, but try to see where they're coming from. I'm like, when was the last time you went to your captain and you asked him how they really were? Like, how are you really doing? Because you're right. Who who do I have to talk to? Now, I'm authentic, very open, and very vulnerable. So I talk to my crew. And I think that is why I have such great success with my crew. But when was the last time you asked your captain how he or she really was? Or when did you take the time to actually stop and observe them and see, are they insecure? Are they depressed? What's the root cause of why they're doing what they're doing? And if you can try to at least somewhat understand, that's going to give you a leg up. And the other thing is, and I remind crew of this all the time, and this is the same, I think, for any CEO or any leader. We become captains because we like to drive boats, we like to navigate, and we like weather. Nobody tells us that that's only 10% of our job. The other 90% of our job is peopling. Nobody told us that. So that's where I think maybe we need to shift a bit too in all levels of executive positions. And we need to teach more about leadership and what it's like to be a proper leader. Because when you get up there, driving the boat is such a little part of what I do now. So, having that community, having compassion, being vulnerable yourself, I think are definitely things that we need to rethink and that we need to make sure that we're doing.
well, you mentioned the word depression. So I actually just did a LinkedIn live event called Entrepreneurship and Depression. So it is, uh, and I had never really heard it talked about until I started looking into it. But of any profession, entrepreneurs struggle with the most depression, but they're the least likely to admit it. So what makes someone a captain or a high performer is they're stubborn, number one. And two, they're blind to their own weakness, right? Like you becoming a captain, you are blind to the odds of what you were really signing up for, but you were committed to your goal. And that's what high performers are. They're committed at whatever the cost is going to be to get to where they're going. And I mentioned that earlier. It's the collateral damage in the process. With every gain, there's a loss in some area. So if you're investing in your profession, your personal life is sacrificing. If you're only focused on your personal life, then you're not going to succeed in your professional career. And there isn't really a right answer, because you won't reach the top of the mountain without that climb, but it's just self-awareness. And I think that's what you're doing. Is it's not exposing, which I love you phrased it that way, because when you're exposing something, it has like a negative connotation, like you're trying to get even, but you're trying to bring awareness and then make progress, right? Exposing things doesn't do anything without action to make progress. It's just telling everyone what's going on and fueling even bigger problems. So we're all about turning our struggles into bricks and building a strong foundation. Since you made so many boat puns, I can now do a bunch of House of Bricks puns. So I do have the perfect last name for community. It's something God gave me, and it was designed for this phase of life that I'm in now. So you have choices. You can carry life's experiences like bricks, and they're heavy and they weigh you down, or you can lay them down and build a strong foundation. And really the way to do that is brick by brick, building whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish in a compound effect type way. Your success wasn't an epiphany. You didn't just decide to be a captain one day. There was a lot of pressure along the way that you turned into competitive advantage. So as we look to wrap up today's episode, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners or yours? And everyone out there, this is an excellent episode. Please share it with your friends. We're not trying to get you to become a Tupperware salesperson, but you never know the ripple effect that you can have by sharing. And like you said, the person that needs to hear this may not be listening right now. It could be a friend that sends it to someone else. So we just encourage people to believe in that ripple effect of impact. But anything you want to leave us with today?
No, the one thing, maybe two things: be authentic, be genuine, be vulnerable, and be kind to yourself. Remember that the conversations that we have with ourselves are the most important conversations we will ever have. Yeah.
This just turned into counseling for Adam House. So I'll take that. I need to be kinder to myself. So I will take that. Maybe this call was just for me to hear that. So, but all of us high performers, we're our biggest critic of ourselves. But words have power, thoughts have power. So it's why I spend time every morning just renewing my mind with positive things, and then pass that out through the rest of the day and inspiring and encouraging others. And I know you do the same. So Captain Kelly Gordon, thank you for being a guest on the House of Bricks. And yes, I will accept the invitation to come out on your boat. I appreciate that. So just let me know when
Next time you're in Palm Beach, come on.
I will. And I'll bring my 3 teenagers. So.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me here. This was so awesome. Really.
No, it was great. So as we wrap up today's episode, again, want to encourage everybody, share this with your friends. We believe strongly in the ripple effect at the House of Bricks. There's someone out there that needs to hear this message to be inspired. And don't disqualify yourself on where you are today. Reward yourself on where you are going. And Captain Kelly, thank you again for your time. And for our listeners out there that want to learn more about you and what you're doing, can you tell us where to find you?
Yeah, so I have my own website, which is pretty cool. It's captainkellygordon.com. From there, you can find all my socials, or if you just want to go to my socials directly, my handle is at Captain_Kelly J. Gordon. And I would love to have you guys a part of my community along with the House of Bricks community. So thank you, everybody, so much for listening today.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us on this episode of the House of Bricks. Again, share this with your friends. Get the word out there. Amazing story today. and continue to follow our show. And if you have not joined the House of Bricks community yet, I'd love to have you be a part of it. We're doing amazing things. We have excellent entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, investment bankers, people achieving at high levels, or people that want to achieve at high levels. So don't disqualify yourself based on where you are today. Reward yourself based on where you're going. Thank you, everybody.